Hello, I'm Benjamin, and on Radio Gregson from the Gregson Centre Volunteers, you can expect to hear a mix of new writing, storytelling, drama, interviews, expert talks, comedy, music and more. Plus, we'll keep you in the loop with what's happening each month at the Gregson, our beloved community space. In this episode, Maureen is interviewing Rachel about her baking company Talk About Tasty, which supplies delicious cakes for the Gregson. Michael Ford will be chatting to people in the bar. Michael is a local storyteller who runs Lancaster Lore, an open source folklore community on a quest to reseed Lancaster with living stories rooted in every corner of the city. To learn more, you can visit lancasterlore.com. And finally a story, Spanky, told by the author John Chell. John is retired and lives in Lancaster. After a life working in community development, he now watches the world go by and makes stuff up. He has no previous publications, but was half of the St. Helens-based performance poetry duo, the Howitzer Brothers, in the late 1980s. Spanky is one of a collection of political fairy tales he is currently working on. So, grab a brew, get comfy, and here to begin is Maureen.
My name is Maureen and I'm here to interview Rachel of Talk About Tasty, which is her baking company. And it supplies the Gregson and also the Dukes with very creative and delicious cakes. What made you want to start up Talk About Tasty, Rachel?
Well, I've always had a passion for baking and enjoyed baking for friends and family. But it was something that after kind of COVID and I'd had my little girl, that I decided really I wanted to not go back into full-time employment, but have more time with her. And I decided that doing a home baking business was something that would allow me to do that, to still work, but still have that time with her as well.
I've known you, Rachel, since 2017 actually, when you did a very different job. Can you tell me a little bit about your job then?
So I started working at the Dukes probably kind of like in 2010 really, after finishing my degree, which was in drama. I've always been interested in kind of stage management and design side of things, starting off with youth theatre, moving further on to being an assistant stage manager and eventually stage manager of the Dukes.
Well, I do remember you when we were in Blackout, some of us, in 2017. I do remember you and you did keep us in line. I remember that. So, should we get back to Talk About Tasty?
Okay.
Now, can you tell me how you've transitioned from a baker at home into a professional baker?
Yeah, so I've, like I say, always enjoyed it, and even when I was working in stage management, when we had a read through of things, I'd always bring a cake and always enjoyed seeing people eating my cake and enjoying it. So I kind of started out, the Dukes really, I was lucky enough to get them to stock my stuff in the cafe, and that's kind of the starting point for us. Working on kind of tray bakes and things that would sell that way. And then in addition to this, I did the celebration cakes and things, and I've not been professionally trained, but have kind of moved into it. So I've not professionally trained in baking, but I've kind of learned along the way, and I'm always enjoying watching videos, learning new skills, reading different recipes, and learning and developing my cakes that way, really.
Did you have to do any more training?
So in order to set up Talk About Tasty, you do have to get your health and hygiene certificates and contact the council and mark it as what you want to do. And then they come and they evaluate your kitchen and make sure you're adhering to all the rules and things. And it's also important to have business insurance in place as well.
I've done a little bit of research. I went down the Dukes and spoke to the lady who sells the cakes behind the bar, and she said the tray bakes are very popular. This brings me to something which is really personal to me, and that is gluten-free. Now, I know I can eat the amaretti and I can eat the flapjacks, but is there any plans for you to do a gluten-free tray bake type cake at all?
Well, obviously, the different allergens are quite important, and my brother's got a severe nut allergy, so that a lot of the time there's things that he couldn't have growing up. Part of my baking was to try and make things that he couldn't go out and have a slice of cake. We used to bake things at home, so trying to cater for everybody is really important. Yeah, I am developing more gluten-free things.
Well, that's good news.
Liking to reading more recipes, seeing what works. We've got a gluten-free brownie in the mix, and I've started doing more cupcakes as well that are gluten-free, because there is a demand out there for them, definitely.
You're a very creative person all round, aren't you? And this does show in your baking, but also I believe you're quite good at design.
Yeah, again, when I started out at the Dukes, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to work in design as well. So, I've been able to do set design, costume design, and all those kind of creative things kind of build into to cakes as well. And I've started, particularly with the celebration cakes, working on sugarcraft and moulding with fondant and things. And the cakes have now taken over a little bit of that creative output for me. So it's nice to be able to show that in the cakes.
Yes, the lady behind the bar in the Dukes was telling me about the hummingbird cake, which intrigued me actually.
Yeah, the hummingbird cake that we've just started doing, we like to change things with the seasons a little bit. So we've moved out of the autumn and the sticky gingerbread and the Christmas mince pies, and we're trying some different flavours. So we've gone for the hummingbird, which is a banana and pineapple combination. Based on one of the recipe books that I really like is the Hummingbird Bakery recipe books. They have red velvet and their hummingbird cake recipe. So I am inspired by those and then like to put my own twist on it.
Apart from supplying the Dukes and the Gregsons with your lovely cakes, Rachel, do you do anything else regarding your baking?
Yeah, I do take individual orders for cakes. So we're on Instagram and we have a Facebook page. I do celebration cakes, so I specialise in kind of drip cakes, chocolate or fruit, and then I have wedding cakes as well now, with a semi-naked frosting and fresh flowers, so they're getting more and more popular. All kinds of requests really, so we've done gender reveal cakes, cupcakes for all occasions. I'm always up for a challenge, so yeah, we're trying to meet people's requests.
Well, that is very interesting actually. So talk about tasty, watch this space.
Yeah, that's it.
Hello and welcome to the first ever session of Stories at the Bar here at the Gregson. We're at the bar, we're by the windows in the sort of zine area, and I am here with some lovely folks who have some stories to share about the Gregson. The question I'm going to ask you is, can you tell me a story of something interesting or interestingly mundane that has happened to you at the Gregson? Anyone want to get us started?
Well, it's kind of mundane, but it's also kind of really nice. The Gregson did change my life. That's so dramatic. Basically, I was just a student at uni and I started working with a little theatre company. The woman who runs it was like, do you want to go to one of my theatre classes and get some pictures for our socials? And I was like, sure, I can do that. So I came along and we went upstairs and we were in the Olive Bar. There was all these nice people here and I was like, okay, this seems really cool. Like, this is a lot cooler than I was expecting. So I took some pictures and some videos and I was like, that's cool. And I went home and then I convinced myself I needed more. I didn't. I had enough content, but I came back the next week and I joined in a little bit. And then the next week some more, and that was 2 years ago, and I've kept coming and coming and coming back because the people are so nice. It was firstly just for the theatre and for the job, but now it's become more that I like the people here. They're kind, they really want to be there at the classes, which is nice. I've taught so many other classes where people, they just want to be there because they feel like they have to, where here they really want to be like part of like an ensemble in the sense of like, oh, let's create something together, but also like let's socialise as well. And it's really wholesome. And if I hadn't have started coming to these classes, then I never would have stayed in Lancaster. So I would have gone home, I would have moved somewhere else. So without the Gregson and the classes and these people, I genuinely wouldn't have stayed in Lancaster. My life wouldn't have been the way it is now.
So is that the classes you're teaching now?
Yeah.
That's how they started? I thought you were like more involved from the beginning, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, like I knew that they were happening, and then I
Yeah.
did like the socials content and
Yeah.
stuff, and then I slowly got into taking one or two, and now teaching them and doing my play with you guys, and yeah.
That is a
If you weren't-
beautiful story.
Yeah, if you guys weren't so nice, I wouldn't have stayed in Lancaster, genuinely. So you've all genuinely changed the course of my life here in the Gregson. It is mundane because it's, on paper, it's just a theatre class. But it's so much more than that. Like, people work together and want to have a drink after and want to share bits of their life with each other and organise socials. And, hey guys, do you want to go to quiz night on Wednesdays? That makes my week every week, even though I'm not here on Wednesdays. It's so wholesome. So, yeah, the Gregson changed my life.
Yes. That is beautiful, profound mundanity. Thank you for that. Who's going to top that story?
I could add to the discussion.
Yeah, do.
I was just thinking it's just really nice that in our group it's just such a lovely group of people and feel really close to everyone now, which is really nice.
It's nice that we've become more than just... Because we could be and it would be fine, but we've become more than just like, here's an acting group, we meet up on the Mondays and we see each other and we do some theatre and then we see each other the next Monday. That'd be fine and that'd be nice, but we're so much more than that. Like, we know each other's like birthdays, like we have little socials with each other, like, you staying for a drink? Yeah, of course you are. This is my dog. I've written this poem, let me share it. I've got this going on, like, can we talk? I've got ideas towards this play. Like, there's so much more that we do. Oh, it's so nice. I'll spiral. Like, this is so nice.
I wonder if there's something about being an acting group that makes you more willing to be intimate and, like, show your true selves to each other, because you're sort of, when you're acting, you're kind of being more vulnerable and being more silly. You're maybe more likely to get closer.
No, I find it strange when I'm acting because I can just kind of jump into something and like bring out this side of me and I don't really even know where it comes from.
That's magic.
Yeah.
That is so magic. I heard that from so many people, just that, like, because a lot of our people in our class aren't extroverts at all. I think I know I am. I yap for days. But I think a lot of people in our class are very introverted, and there's something really special about, being in an acting class that lets you kind of take off a mask or take a veil, and you could suddenly be like, this is me, even though I'm acting with someone else, this is me. And that's a really nice thing that happens.
That's interesting because I've always thought about it as like bringing something out rather than taking something off, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I always used to think about being like, oh, well, this is a new thing on. But I think the more you do it, the more you're taking yourself out and putting yourself into the world more, because you're sharing little bits of yourself and fragments of other ways.
I think it's nice that it allows you to play, like as an adult.
Yeah.
You don't get the opportunity to play, so that's what I really like about it.
It's nice,
Yeah.
especially because I'm always like, how's our Monday been? And it's a mixture, like a cacophony of busy, stressful, productive. I don't think I've ever heard anyone be like, really calm. So it's nice that then I see you like unleash and you're just like, I'm going to do this thing. Like today when you're like, I'm going to be a Boy Scout, let's run around. And you all just were like unleashing this energy. It was so special. And the fact that like that happens here in the Gregson, like I really can't imagine this happening somewhere else. I really can't. I think the vibe in the community here is just so, it's so knitted together and nice that, you know, it allows you to be yourselves. It's nice. Yeah.
Well, that was a very interesting conversation that we've had out of that story that you've shared. And I feel that's exactly the sort of thing that the Gregson want to hear.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Does anyone else have any interesting or mundane stories about life in the Gregson to share?
Does the story have to have a beginning, a middle and an end?
Yes, you'll be judged for the quality of your plotting.
What is a story?
Well, it's more of a snapshot memory, really. But there was this is like, we're going back at least 20 years now. But there was an art student who used to work behind the bar. I think she was called Anna. Can't 100% remember. And as part of her final piece, or one of her final pieces of coursework, I guess, the entire floor in here was covered in mirrors, and the extension was fairly new at the time, and it was quite disorientating to come in here at the end of a night. Maybe you'd had a drink or two already, and the whole floor is like made of mirrors, and I can't sort of imagine the engineering that went into it, in that it held all the weight of people walking over it and things like that.
You could walk on the mirrors.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I feel like I'd
Unless I've dreamed it.
Unless you walked on them, her art project, and she was like, Dad, why does she keep going on them? I just cleaned them.
I think there was some on the walls as well, and the ones on the walls, I'm pretty sure, stayed for quite a lot longer. But this is like the pre-COVID Gregson, before it's like little rebirth, so a long time ago.
Yes. Well, perhaps someone listening to Radio Gregson could confirm, is this a dream or did this really happen to Desna?
It does sound like the kind of thing I might dream, to be honest with you, so yeah.
Great.
I'm going to have to check when I get home with other older people who remember that long ago.
The older people.
Marvellous. What a lovely couple of stories about the Gregson. Thank you very much. Oh.
For more information on the Gregson's adult acting classes run by 3 Left Feet, please see the website. Classes cover the basics of performance on stage and are geared towards beginners, but can be enjoyed by all. Sessions are safe and creative spaces, and your session leader Eleanor is there to help guide, but never to tell you what's right and what's wrong in performance. The classes are scheduled on Mondays from 7 until 8:30 p.m. There's no need to book, but feel free to email info@3leftfeet.co.uk to register your interest or to find out more. And now, for the final segment of this month's show, it's John with his story, Spanky.
Spanky, the circus bear. Once upon a time, there lived an old couple, Amy and Eric. They lived a quiet, peaceful life with their dog, Old Economy, deep in the heart of a peaceful and beautiful country far, far away. They lived comfortably, quietly, and modestly, and everything seemed fine. But they were all 3 of them getting older. And Old Economy was getting older quicker than either Amy or Eric, as dogs do. He slept longer and closer to the fire, and then one day, quite suddenly, one cold white dawn, Old Economy died. It was a very sad day, and neither Amy nor Eric knew quite what to do. They tried to comfort each other. They tried to carry on regardless. They tried thinking this was the way of the world, or the way of their God. They tried not to pretend that there was a huge gap in their home and in their lives. They sort of wished that they could get back to when Old Economy was young and they were young, and they could go out walking with Old Economy, running after rabbits and squirrels and pigeons, and generally terrorising everything in the natural world, and them with their hunting rifles and AK-47s having a glorious time. That's what they really wished. They wished they could close their eyes and dream back time. But of course they couldn't do that. Old Economy passing away had reminded both of them that they weren't as young or as fit or as rich as they used to be. They thought too much, or not really thought. They brooded and missed the old times, and couldn't really think about the years ahead, because those years didn't seem anywhere near as good as the years that had gone. Life was still great, sure, but life wasn't as great as it had been. If only life could be that great again. In their hearts they knew this was a foolish dream, but a comforting and fine dream anyway. So, to cheer themselves up, they went to the circus. The lights, the crowds, the popcorn and hot dogs, the trapeze artists, the clowns, the colours and the music were all wonderful. They did the trick. And one of the best things was Spanky the bear. A big golden brown bear with a wig on his head that made him look almost human. He rode his little bike round and round the ring and liked it when his lady keeper rolled up a copy of Forbes magazine and whacked him on the behind with it. Everyone laughed at Spanky. He made life simple and problem-free for as long as he was riding his little bike round and round. Amy and Eric came out of the big top and into the night air, feeling like life had turned a corner, that they could breathe again, that everything would be okay. They stopped for a second, adjusting their coats and gloves, watching the crowd disperse and listening to the voices of people all around them, heading for home, happy and feeling good about themselves. And in a corner, they saw the bearkeeper lady having a cigarette and a break after the show. So they went over to talk to her and to tell her how much they liked the circus and how much they liked Spanky in particular. The bearkeeper lady smiled and said thank you, but seemed a little subdued and sad, so they asked her what was wrong. She said it was Spanky. He was getting old. Everybody had loved Spanky, but he wasn't as popular now as he had been, and he was getting so fat that his rather large ursine behind wouldn't fit on the seat of the little bike anymore. She thought that he didn't even seem to like it as much as he used to when she hit him with the rolled-up magazine. In fact, the time was coming fast when Spanky would have to be retired and sent to that great bear pit in the sky. This was too much for Amy and Eric. Spanky had given them a glimpse of a new happiness, a new life. To be exact, a new happiness through forgetting about life and just being reminded of the old life. So they protested and said this could not be, and the bearkeeper lady said it had to be, and they said it was a crying shame, and the bearkeeper lady said what could she do, and they said, well, they said what came into both their minds at the same time and seemed to be the obvious thing to say. What they said was that Spanky could come and live with them, that he could take up the painfully empty space left by old economy, and they'd be very glad to have him. And, strange to say, the bearkeeper lady didn't object and dropped Spanky off with them the next Tuesday when the circus left town. They loved that Spanky had come to live with them. He was easy to feed. He loved cheeseburgers, lots of cheeseburgers. And he put on his wig and rode his little bike round and round in front of their house, and their hearts filled with contentment to see that they had rescued him and he had rescued them. But there were problems. He was, after all, inhuman. To start with, there was a lot of, let's call it, waste material that was as foul and as ugly as only circus bear waste material can be, and it came out of seemingly every orifice that Spanky had. Frequently. Night and day. Often at 3 o'clock in the morning. Obviously he couldn't help himself, but the crap, let's call it actually what it was, that spouted from Spanky was of a very high order of disgusting. Maybe all the cheeseburgers had something to do with it. And, of course, he never cleaned it up. In fact, it seemed that whenever he saw one of the rank misdemeanours he was guilty of, his first impulse, which of course he always obeyed, was to commit another misdemeanour on top of it to increase and emphasise the horribleness of his contribution to the household. He seemed to enjoy that. Then there was the problem that he thought he could fix things. Maybe growing up near ordinary human beings, Spanky had seen how they would change a light bulb, or close an umbrella, or park a car. And he thought in his own darkened way that he could do these things just as well or better. His way of fixing things usually meant taking a sudden interest in them, taking them apart, bending, chewing, sitting on, throwing away or losing parts until the thing was no longer workable, trying to put the thing back together so that it looked like it had before, never quite the same though, and then looking round challengingly once it dawned on him that it no longer worked, with a look that suggested that, in his opinion, someone had secretly crept up behind him and totally spoiled all his good work. So the fridge was minus a door. The remote control had been chewed into a corrugated banana shape. The computer, he insisted, worked best in the bath, and the washing machine had been turned upside down and beaten to an asterisk shape. That was bad enough, but it was the noises that he made that were the biggest problem. Amy and Eric could have coped with a house full of dysfunctional electrical appliances and rooms that smelt like the death of kindness. It was their business, and just their business. But Spanky liked to growl and roar and bark and snarl very loudly, often, and for no reason. The noises he made were really frightening. Of course, Spanky was physically very harmless and couldn't have fought anyone. He'd pretended to a couple of times at the circus, but real fights, no. The bearkeeper lady had told Amy and Eric that Spanky couldn't fight even if he'd wanted to because of bone spurs on his legs. But you wouldn't know that just to look at him. True, he was fat and old and flabby, but there was a look that came into his eyes that was pure meanness. And if a bear could have hired a crooked lawyer or someone similar to do his dirty work for him, you'd swear that bear would have been Spanky. The sounds that came out of his mouth were so terrible that the neighbours found them hard to tolerate. They came round to the house to complain, but Spanky scared them off. Spanky didn't understand the concept of neighbours. He seemed to think that any neighbours were mortal enemies, and he, personally, was entitled to their houses, their gardens, and anything they possessed. Parents wouldn't let their children play near or even walk past Amy and Eric's house because they were so worried about what Spanky might do. The toxic environment that Spanky had created in Amy and Eric's home was apparent to everyone with a nose to detect it. And so people began to avoid Amy and Eric altogether, including family and people who normally had a pretty special relationship with the old couple. Things were getting bad. Amy and Eric were broke because they'd spent all their money on Spanky and on erecting a massive new wall at the bottom of their garden, which they told Spanky was to keep trouble out, but was in reality to keep it in. What were they to do? They sat by the fire one November night, while Spanky was having one of his frequent naps, and looked at each other. They could see what the other was thinking, and they both knew they were thinking the same. Spanky was a horrible bear who had made their lives a lot worse. They had been tricked into adopting him. But in the end, vile old bear that he was their vile old bear. They loved him, and love is what matters in the end.
And so that is it for this month on Radio Gregson. Thank you, Maureen and Rachel. I'll have to try one of your cakes sometime soon. Thank you also to Michael and his guests sharing their experiences from the bar. Finally, John, I look forward to your next story. I'm Benjamin, and this has been Radio Gregson. Thank you very much for listening.